Hey, my lovely, wonderful, beautiful, handsome people, a pleasant afternoon to everybody. Now, lovely people, I was doing some chores today, and while doing it, I decided that I wanted to listen to some of the selectors. I think I was listening to something that kind of spawned that feeling to go and listen to them, and I'm glad I did. Some of our local Jamaican selectors, and I mean, they were airing their grosses, their pain, their hurt, because you can hear it, the men, I'm talking about. And one in particular I decided to put on repeat. For it went on, I mean, it was like a 30-minute thing, and it went on and on because, because I'm doing the thing and chores and it's going. And I said I deliberately allowed it to go on repeat because I wanted to get the full understanding and etymology of everything, because there are a lot of people who are hurting right now, who are disposed in financial ways. They are pushed aside, ostracized mentally, psychologically, and otherwise because of a word called ingratitude. And unfortunately, ingratitude is across sectors. So it's not just the entertainment, So the selector, I was listening to Foota Hype, Matterhorn, and I think somebody else I was listening to. And I put Foota Hypes on repeat because he said some things that I could literally identify with, and it is so bothersome when people don't seem to understand what you're talking about because they're not necessarily experiencing that particular issue. But one fine day, something that is relatable, and they can literally make a juxtaposition, they can make a link with, then they will begin to understand what he has posited and what many others, or some others, because maybe people are afraid because they don't want to be stonewalled, they don't want to be blackballed, they don't want to be ostracized, they don't want to be rejected, they don't want people to speak more ill words than they're already speaking about them. They can't handle it because it may affect them mentally, psychologically, financially, and socially. So sometimes they keep a lot of the pain that they have, about people that they would have aided in them becoming millionaires or multimillionaires, billionaires, and they have not remembered them. They have not honored them, you know. Even somebody had asked which I have a question, what do you mean by take care of, so we can understand? He said, whoever moved you from poverty to being a millionaire, I'm trying to quote him as closely as possible, that should be the most important person in your life. And I understand, I would put them as a priority, a top priority, not necessarily the most important, but I would say you can put them as a top priority. When Usain Bolt became Usain in the real and full way, I never forgot when I watched his documentary and a book I read, I think, as well. Usain said, I physically ran, but it was my coach that ran, like he would say, theoretically, in a sense, you know. And that homage that he has paid to his coach will remain for life. My assumption is that that coach will never be a broke man because of Usain Bolt. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't be, because other runners would not be grateful to him and give back to him for life. But I can safely assume, on the basis of how I watched that documentary and how I perceive, the aura, the spirit, meaning the attitude of a Usain Bolt, that his coach will never be a broke man. He will never be an ordinary man financially, even. Because of him. Also because of his contribution. Let me put it that way. Because he's is basically saying it's really because of my coach why I'm where I'm at. So that is gratitude par gratitude, meaning, that is what a lot of people would want from people that they would have contributed to greatly. A lot of people are brokenhearted in the workplaces when they think of how they went above and beyond, in their work, and they got no remuneration, they got no accolade, they got no recognition, no respect, for what they would have done and contributed individually. I'm talking about, because of maybe jealousy, envy, and just a spirit of unthankfulness and ingratitude. It is because of that person's contribution why the company or the organization or the church or wherever or the social club would have done successfully in the way that it has done. And sometimes many of these people who are in leadership, they will know it. And because of jealousy and envy in malicious and malignant ways, they will hold the truth from the crowd, and they will not allow anyone to see the gifts and the talents in that individual. They will not allow anyone to know that this, because of this individual, this was done. In fact, they will shaft the individual and try to give others so that that individual doesn't get an opportunity to shine in its fullness. They will do these things. And he was even mentioning something where he said, for example, some locals, and he's talking about the local selectors, where, he called some names and said that some of the artists should have just called them and give them a 2 million Jamaican dollars. Him saying, I'm not even going to talk US. And when he said that, I remember there was a lady who was made redundant, and she got her last check, and she went to the late great and the esteemed Dr. Miles Monroe, and crying and bawling because she has 3 children and no money, poor and whatnot. And he says, why are you crying? I remember you. You have a talent in baking. You have a stove at home? And she said, yes. He said, tell you what you're going to do. You're going to use that money. You're going to bake cookies and give them for free. And she wondered if this man has lost his mind. It's like an Elijah with the widow's situation there. Is a Shunammite woman? Yes, I think it was. Elisha or Elijah. Sometimes I mix them up. And like she would have her last money. And him said, give it to me. And she wanted, is this man insane, or is he uncaring? No, but there was a principle in it. And he said, obey me. If you'll obey me, you're going to do well. And she did it. She took her last money, baked cookies, and went to the place that made her redundant. She came back to him and said, they called me and said that they love the cookies and they're ordering. He said, okay, if they're going to order, let them prepay you, because you have to buy the things. Right? And she said, okay, and they did that. Long and short of it, the lady was able to hire 2 people. They know she has 100 and, well, I don't know what it is presently, but at the time when he spoke, she had 150 employees because she listened to him. And she came back when things were great, when she became a millionaire or a multi-millionaire, he said. Remember, this is a Caribbean man. He said she looked dressed. I never ever remember the conversation. And she handed him a check, 10,000 US dollars. 10,000 US dollars. She was grateful because yes, God is ultimate, obviously, but it was also because of him. And she was grateful, and she has sown a seed that her basket will never run dry. He just gave her an idea and she took it. But because of the idea, she took it. It worked, and she is a multimillionaire. Remember, Saul hated David, was, let's say, more jealous of David. It was really more jealousy. Because the women sang, Saul killed 1,000, David killed tens of thousands. And it burned him to know that this little pitney way kind of guided, and helping his, well, I wouldn't say rearing. He would have been a teen when he came to Saul. But still helped in a sense. Supersede him, and it hurt him. But that's a good thing. But Saul was just blinded by that. The enemy blinded him. But after he was killed, and his best friend, which was Saul's son, died, in 2 Samuel 9, David was just reminiscing and thinking about the good times, probably even with Saul, because it wasn't all bad. And he said, is there anyone alive remaining in the house of Saul? And because I want to show kindness for Jonathan's sake. Not even though he never said for Saul's sake, but for him to say in the house of Saul. He could have said Jonathan. Anybody remaining for Jonathan? But he still said the house of Saul. When Saul and Jonathan were killed, he mourned for both of them. God had to bless a man like David. And when he found out that Mephibosheth, that's Jonathan's son, who became crippled because the maid kind of had to run from whoever was coming, the enemies, and he dropped and became crippled. David took him and gave him back what belonged to his grandfather, which is Saul and father. That is why David's name will always call on many of you people. It's not just an entertainment thing, Foota Hype. It's across sectors. And that is why you see many of them not doing well in their latter days. because they're ungrateful and unthankful to those that would have contributed to them being great. Guys, you know what to do with TikTok and YouTube. Subscribe. Give me one of those lines.